I thought I would pose questions that can't be answered before I thank everybody for their contributions. Um, the first question relates to what uh, Katie was saying and the question of feed that Hannah addressed, um, although it's not quite so relevant to the Feral Atlas project. And that is that if we see all of this from a helicopter view, um, most of the processes that people have examined so brilliantly are designed to feed Homo sapiens at some level, and to feed Homo sapiens sufficiently with a small carbon footprint and so on, feeding the world, as the Wisconsin farmers said to Katie, which comes from, as she knows, a slogan much earlier in the USDA. Um, uh, so we take for granted that this nearly 8 billion population needs to be fed, and that is the first goal, and how to do it efficiently and environmentally safely and with respect for the animals and so on is our, if you like, our objective. Um, that you may or may not remember that Sam referred to indirectly to population problems by talking about women's education, with the idea that then you would have smaller families and so on. And I think Hannah would be more knowledgeable than I about things like candida and hormone disruptors. So our path to a smaller population may already be paved, if you like, by some of the processes of industrial agriculture already. And we may have, in a sense, sealed our reproductive future by the way in which we have produced our population in the first place. But I basically wanted to say we need to query this question of whether an exponential explosion of the human population, we just take that for granted and build it into our calculus. I don't think we should. The second question that can't be answered, I suppose, is the question of, if you wanted to put it in ethical terms, what we owe domesticates as opposed to wild flora and fauna. The basic definition of domestication for most purposes is a species of plant or animal that cannot survive without our care and protection. However, it seems to me that, like it or not, we have become the incompetent zookeepers for all of the wild world as well. And we are responsible in bioreserves and other circumstances for the creation of those conditions that allow the wild world to continue in a restrictive way. That is to say, the whole world is in effect a zoo in the hands of Homo sapiens management, and we don't much know what we're doing. So that the ethical question, I suppose, is what is our obligation to the domesticated world? One could argue from, if you like, a purely instrumentalist point of view, that we created the domesticates. They are, if you like, our products, our good, and we can destroy them if we like. We made them and we can dispose of them as we wish. On the other hand, you could take the view that they did not ask to be here. It's our curation, if you like, a word I use advisedly, that have created the domestic chicken, the domestic sheep, which I raised for 20 years, the domestic cattle, domestic pigs, and also the domesticated plants. And the question is then, do we owe them if you like, an additional obligation? And if so, what is that obligation? Do we owe them an additional obligation because we created them, right? And we are responsible for them in a way in which we might not be quite so responsible to the tigers and lions, coyotes, wild plants and weeds and so on in the refuges that they have often retreated to. So the question is, what is our moral obligation toward domesticates, if any? It's a rhetorical question, and it's not a rhetorical question. It's a question I cannot answer myself, although I puzzle over it. I want to say that not just listening to you all, but also reading the texts that you sent has made this. I'm old enough to have attended hundreds of conferences. One of the most exciting intellectual conferences I've ever attended. And the function of a conference, as I said at the outset, is to teach you things you don't know and would like to get to know. And I come out of this conference with more questions than I have answers, which is to me the ultimate tribute to a successful conference. And I want to thank you all for your participation, and also to the people who were hosts and the organizers of each session. I thought you did a spectacular job. Thank you very much.